Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Thrive After Sports. If you're tuning in on Author Spotlight, thank you for tuning in there. It's your boy, Taj Deshawn, and today I'm joined by my man, Malcolm Lemmons. What's going on, Malcolm?
Taj, what's good, man? Pleasure being on the show.
It's a pleasure to have you here, man. It's one of those things we've been connected for so long, and to finally get you on here to have a conversation, man. I know it's going to be so much value derived from this episode, so appreciate you taking the time today, man.
Definitely.
So for those of you who don't know, Malcolm Lemmons is a two-time author. He's a former professional basketball player, and he's the founder of Athletes Unheard. Also, Clarity Watches, correct? Did I get that right?
Yeah, a little side hustle that I got. Kind of put it on the back burner for the time being, but yeah, started that late 2020. So
I see, man. I forgot all about that. We were talking beforehand. I left Clarity out, man, but I'm sure we'll get to that in a second, man. But you met somebody, man. Since I started working with athletes in 2018, you were one of the guys where, you know how it is. There's a lot of people who talk about doing the work, and then there's people who actually do the work, right? There's people who have receipts, like, I've been doing this, I've been helping people, I've been changing lives. And from the jump, I connected with you right away, man, because I'm like, this dude Malcolm Lemmons is serious, man.
I appreciate that, man.
For the past few years, you know, it's the proof is in the pudding. I'll just leave it at that, man. But for the listeners, I just want to dive into your story from the very beginning. I don't want to give too much away. I want to let you talk about it just from the time where your career was starting to wrap up. Mm-hmm. And I believe you were overseas at the time, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Can you just talk a little bit about that process as your professional career was starting to wind down?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, man, it was like, I guess from the time that I graduated from college and you know, my first couple of years playing overseas, it was very unstable. And you know, going back and forth from overseas, not really, you know what I'm saying, know where my next contract was going to come from. That lifestyle takes a toll on you. And I wasn't making that much money overseas. So I knew that, you know, me being close to my family and missing a lot of occasions, that lifestyle wasn't something I wanted to do for the next several years. So it was during my second year playing over in Japan that I really started to think about, you know, basketball wasn't in the picture. What would I be doing? And I had no idea, man. I'm sitting there, you know, I got a little small loft outside of Tokyo, Japan. And I came in the middle of the season. So we had about a month-long break where we were just practicing for like an hour or two and we weren't playing any games. So I had a lot of time on my hands to really just think. And man, I had a computer in front of me, no Wi-Fi, and I started to write, man, just because I had the time and it was a method of reflection for me. And to make a long story short, you know, all of that, the writing that I was doing over there kind of brought it back with me back home. And, you know, I was sharing it with people, telling people what I was doing. And, you know, people thought I had an inspiring story. And it was suggested to me that I should publish a book. And that was something that I never thought about before. I didn't ever consider myself to be a writer. It was never something I aspired to be. But I thought about how I would be doing an injustice to other athletes if I didn't talk about what I had went through to get to that point in my life and some of the things that I took away from playing sports. So that's how it happened for me, man. That was like the beginning of my transition, and publishing that first book opened up a lot of doors.
Yeah, man. For anybody who doesn't know, if you haven't checked out not just the books, but any of Malcolm's articles, very talented writer, man. And I consider myself a very talented writer. So, you know, whenever I read Malcolm stuff, I'm like, man, this is quality. This is some quality work right here. And the great part about it too, man, is that everything that you do, it shines through, that you are trying to have an impact, and you keep it real too, man. Because I feel like anytime I'm reading something, it's almost like listening to you talk on a podcast or something. Like, I think you're very talented at writing in your voice, you know?
Yeah, man. I mean, that just takes a lot of practice and consistency. I think you find your voice over time. And if you're just willing to put in the work, you know, writing is one of those things, like, you can't get good at it unless you're doing it day in and day out, and, you know, honing your craft as really with anything else. But I think writing is one of those things, like, you have to just consistently hammer it out, whether it's like, you know, 500 words a day, just getting that practice. And over time, you start to find your voice, and you start to kind of figure out your messaging and your positioning and how you kind of format and structure your, whether it's like a blog post or anything like that. So to me, it just, you know, something I'm naturally good at, but it took me a long time to kind of figure out my voice and to really, you know, start to get good at that craft.
Right. And for those listening on Author Spotlight, you know, a lot of people think that it's almost impossible to write a book. There's that camp, and then there's people who think, oh, I can write a book, it's easy. And I think it falls somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask you, man, like, how did you, especially on the first go around, how did you see your athletic mindset like taking root or taking shape in you going through the often grueling process of writing a book? How did you see that applying?
That's a really good question, man. I would think more than anything else is just discipline. As I just said, it's about consistently putting in the work, even though you feel like you're not getting anywhere with it. So whether that's writing 500 words a day or even just 200 words a day, and you're not seeing it doesn't feel like your book is coming to life, or you feel like you still got 30,000 words to go. Like, it's just having that mindset to consistently putting in the work, even though you're not seeing the fruits of your labor. And so I think that mindset, being an athlete, you constantly practicing over time, you slowly, gradually start to get better. But those results, I guess in sports, it's a little bit different because, especially with basketball, you can get your 500 shots in a day, and you start to get that immediate feedback in the next game, whether you making or missing a shot. So I would say with writing, it's a little bit different because you're not getting that immediate feedback, but the same mindset still kind of applies of consistently putting in that work and having the discipline and the patience to kind of see it through to get to the other end. And so for me, it was really just about that more than anything else.
Right. And then so you're out there in Japan, man, the no Wi-Fi grind, just writing stuff out, and you gotta forgive me, man. I haven't had a chance to read the first book. Definitely got the second one right here, Impact Beyond the Game, which we will get to in just a second. But what was the vision and the mission behind the first book? Once you had people telling you should write a book, you decided to go for it with it. What was the overall general direction, and how did you know that you wanted to go that direction with that first book?
Man, I had no idea what I was doing, to be honest with you, bro. Like, I just kind of winged the whole process. And for me, it was just like, I've always been the type of dude that's like, try it. If I like it, keep going with it. If it fails, whatever, move on to the next thing. Like, I'm not afraid to fail in public and to try things that I think I might like. And so for me, I was like, writing a book could be cool. And so I went along and tried to find an editor, publisher, learning about formatting getting the cover together, the design, chapters, like all this stuff. It was like I didn't know how to do any of it, but I had somebody help me, kind of walk me through the process. And I wouldn't say the book came out perfect by any means, but it was something that I look back and I value the experience because I learned more than anything else. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of the things that I felt like I did wrong the first time around, I was able to put into this next book. And I feel like this Impact Beyond the Game was way better, but it wouldn't have been if I didn't kind of fail through that first process. So, writing a book is hard, man. It's definitely hard work. And I tell people that, writing is one thing. That's like running 2 marathons. You got to write it and then you got to actually market it. And those are 2 different processes. So when you understand how much work is really put into a book, you can't really do it for the money. It's all about, the difference that you're going to make in someone else's life with the words and your stories that you're telling in the book. So that first book, man, it was an accident, but it was a blessing in disguise because it taught me a lot.
Did you publish the book while you were still in Japan, or was it actually published after you came back to the States?
So it was published when I came back. I had I think so 2016, I just came back from Japan, and I think I had sat out the beginning of that next year, and I published a book, I think officially in July of 2017. And I was going to go back and actually play in Morocco that following season. I was going to leave in that December to go play in Morocco, and the deal fell through like 2 days before I was supposed to leave. So I had just published my book. I had started getting some speaking opportunities, some other media opportunities, and I was like, you know what? Like I've kind of found another path. I see some other stuff that I could be doing, and then that was when I retired of December 2017, and I had just published my book. So
That's interesting, man. Because and you and I have put out a lot of information about this, where it's almost like a lot of athletes are completely lost. But it sounds like in your case, it was like you had already started chipping away at this new path for yourself, as far as being an author and speaking, and just putting good information out there. And then the career ended once that new path was already starting to line itself out. So it's almost like you kind of had a head start, but I'm sure there was some challenges associated with that too. So what was that whole process like of being like, wow, I'm actually done, but I got this whole new path in front of me?
It was scary, man. I mean, you go from being one thing your entire life, almost, and you have to kind of strip that title away from your identity and disassociate it from yourself and kind of reshape and reframe what people think about you and what you even think about yourself. And so that was the scariest part for me. It was like, I've been Malcolm the basketball player, and now people are starting to see me as Malcolm the author. That don't even sound right. You know what I'm saying? So at the time, it was just like, it was really more of a leap of faith than anything else. Like I said, the book had opened up some doors. I didn't know what was going to come from it or where exactly I was going. It was more so like, I know I'm not going to play basketball forever. I've started to kind of figure out what else I like to do or another path I could potentially take in life after sports. And so in my heart, more than anything else, I followed my heart, man. And I just have faith that whatever path this book took me or whatever doors it opened up for me, I was just going to pursue it with passion and feeling like that was the right thing to do at that point in my life. And I mean, I don't really have regrets. I mean, I to this day, I still feel like I can get out there and play with the best of them. But I'm making a bigger difference and impact by using my experience as an athlete and some of the things that I did wrong and some of the things that I learned to impact the next generation and even impact athletes that are still playing today. I think a lot of my content applies and a lot of stuff that I put out applies to athletes across the board. And so that's all I can ask for, man, is did I take my experience and what I've been through in life to make someone else's life better? And that's how I look at it. Basketball was good to me and I will forever cherish the opportunities and the relationships that I built. But it's bigger than that, man. It's about, using that to do bigger and better things in life and to make bigger impact. So.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's a beautiful thing to hear that you got to a point in your life, which is everyone's goal, not just athletes, but everyone's goal to be able to wake up every day and do something that is inspiring to them. Right. I try to stay away from the word passion these days, but living in their purpose, meaning it doesn't just make you excited or you enjoy it, but it's having an impact on other people.
Mhm.
So it's great that you were able to recognize that early, especially after, man, 2 days before you were about to go play. Like that had to hurt, man. And for you to be able to reframe it and bounce back, be like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this now, and I think that's strong, man. So
Bro, when I tell you I had my bags packed, I was ready. I had Google where I was gonna stay. I was gonna be right on the beach in Tangier, Morocco. I was like, man, I'm ready. And I got that email and it was just like, we don't want you anymore. And God led me to a different path. I was like, if I was meant to go play in Morocco, it would have happened. But I think this was the path that I was supposed to be on. And that's it is what it is, man. You got to roll with the punches in life. So.
right, yeah, no question, man, no question. It's the path you're supposed to be on, man, and that's evident in everything that you do. So I want to be selfish for the Thrive After Sports listeners, man, because it's one thing to identify, okay, I'm going to be an author and a speaker and I'm going to contribute, but it's another thing entirely to stick with it, build it, grow it, be consistent day in and day out, even to the point, man, where you become one of it's LinkedIn top voices in sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations on that, man. So
Thank you, man.
I think just for the listeners, it would be important to hear, like, okay, basketball career is over. I'm gonna go this route. How did you start to build to get to the position you're in now over the past 3-4 years, man? It's been amazing to watch.
Trial and error, bro. When I tell you that, it's just like, man, like just trying things and seeing what sticks. Like that's the honest truth. Like there's no blueprint to, reaching success or, reaching where you're trying to go. You just got to figure out how you can serve people, how you can, what I'm saying, create things that people value and that they're getting something out of. And just putting in the work every single day. And so I knew that, I enjoyed what I was doing. I enjoyed trying to make a difference in other athletes' lives. I enjoyed creating content and writing. And I was like, if I can do this on a consistent basis, in between working jobs, when I come home, like, I had to work jobs and stuff like that, coming home, creating content, writing an article. I knew that, you know, I was doing something that was making a difference, but also I was getting feedback from people saying like, hey, like this article's made a difference in my life, or I like the way you put this, or this was interesting. And so getting that feedback is also reassuring that, you're doing something that's meaningful. So for me, it was just about, picking a platform, which was LinkedIn. And I think that probably the end of 2019, I just decided to go all in because I knew the reach was there. And I knew that, the audience that I was trying to reach was there as well. And so just putting out content, and not overthinking it, and seeing what works. And so I think that definitely played a huge part in me being able to accomplish, LinkedIn Top Voices for Sports. But also I give a lot of credit to the community that I've tried to build on there as well. Cause like without that feedback, without people engaging in the content and, giving me responses to the things that I'm putting out, then I wouldn't have been able to, receive that award. So I give the community credit more than anything else. And so I think that's what it's about, man. Just finding your niche, finding, how you can make a difference, being consistent, putting in the work daily. Because it obviously doesn't happen overnight. And just doing it, man. And so that's what's worked for me. And LinkedIn, as I said, I think the organic reach on the platform is still there. And so I've just been trying to be as consistent as possible and just to, try to make sure I'm putting out valuable content on there daily.
That's amazing, man. I love that you touched on the fact that you were working jobs in between, right? I think a lot of times in this world, it can give a false perception to people who are pursuing something because a lot of people are faking it till they make it versus being transparent like you are and saying, hey, I had to do what I had to do. And that's something that I'm very big on too. I've shared before on the podcast that I'm a big believer in doing what you have to do so that you can do what you want to do. Right. And just last year, I picked up a job. I was installing glass, installing like shower doors and stuff because the pay was good. It was easy manual labor. And I could come home mind fresh to do what I needed to do to continue with the mission. So I love when people share stuff like that, man. There's no shame in taking a job to make sure your needs are met so you can focus on doing your work. It's a big difference between your work and your job, people. So I was planning on saving this question more towards the end of the interview, but I'm like, I want to ask you now because I feel like it could lead to some interesting things. And that's like, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind? How do you want people to remember Malcolm Lemmons?
Great question, man. I think about this often. And to me, it really kind of comes down to, did I give more than I received while I was here? Did I pour myself out to people and really use everything that I've been through to help other people? And so if when I leave this planet, I just want people to say that, one, I was fun to be around. I was, positive energy. I was a good person. But more than anything else, like that dude gave more than he took, what I'm saying? Every single day he tried to, what I'm saying, make a difference in people's lives and just poured himself out to people. So I think that when it's all said and done, I think that's, what I want to be remembered for more than anything else.
I love that, man. And I'm gonna tell you why I asked you that question now instead of like, as a wrap-up question, is because as I've, followed you throughout the years, I feel like there's many layers to Malcolm Lemmons. Right now, obviously, it's focused on sports and athletes, but I've seen you be very vocal about racial injustice. I've seen you be very, very critical of professional organizations, of the NCAA, of athletic departments, of coaches, and not just that, not just calling them out, but encouraging the players themselves to have some accountability over their lives as well, which is important. It's easy to call out the organizations, but to say, hey, you have a role in this too.
Yep.
That's why I say I feel like there's many layers to you. And I consider myself one of these people too, where right now we're doing work, whether it's healing work or uplifting work or just educating to athletes, but that can manifest itself in many different ways. And I feel like you and I are going to look back at this conversation when we're in our 40s and 50s, and we might be doing something on a much broader scale, and athletes just happens to fall underneath that. So I just want to point that out, man, because I think that it's just dope to see that you're vocal about other things outside of athletics as well. And whenever Malcolm Lemmons shows up to give his opinion, it's well received. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think it's important, man. Like whatever you care about, whatever causes and whatever change you want to enact in the world, like it's important that we have these platforms and we're able to utilize our voice effectively to speak out on what we feel is wrong, what we feel needs to be changed. And so I'm not as open as I want to be sometimes because I do, have people following me that I don't want to, not to say that, you know what I'm saying, like I don't want to rub people the wrong way sometimes, or say things that people might take offense to. So I try to be a little more conservative with some of the things that I do say when it pertains to topics that are a little touchy. But man, if I feel strongly about something, I'm going to speak out on it. And if it's blatantly obvious that it needs to be changed, that's just the fact of it all. So
Yeah, man. One of my favorite posts from you in recent history was something along the lines of, it was like, "Good morning to everyone except people who think that athletes should just shut up and dribble." That one had me weak. That's a classic, man. That was hilarious. I thought that was very well done, And if it rubs certain people the wrong way, they deserve to be rubbed the wrong way. That's why you did it. That's why you posted it.
Yeah, it's nothing wrong with a little bit of controversy on social media, man. That's
Right.
sometimes you want to get a rile out of people, but you don't. Sometimes you're towing the line. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be careful, but yeah, it's all right to kind of stir the pot a little bit,
Yeah, I definitely respect it, man. You did that on that post for sure, man. I love it. I was talking just a minute ago about how you've done a great job of holding the players accountable too, right? Um, the athletes accountable, not just the organizations or the coaches or athletic departments, whatever that is. That's actually a perfect segue into talking about the most recent release. There it is, folks. Impact
man.
Beyond the Game. Get your copy. Make sure you support. Not only support, but get educated. Get your mind right. Get some of this game that Malcolm is dropping. What I know a lot of it is centered around the announcement of the NIL laws, which you can definitely get into. But why the second book, man? Why Impact Beyond the Game?
Man, so I would say back in 2018, I started to notice how conversation around NIL was starting to ramp up. Even like going back to Ed O'Bannon and that legislation, and so I deep down I felt like this was going to happen sooner rather than later. I didn't know when, obviously, but I knew it was something that student athletes, not just student athletes, all athletes need to be prepared for, and understand when it comes to utilizing technology and utilizing the influence that they have during their careers and how that can be carried over into life after sports. And so I think a lot of the tactics and the strategies that I put in the book is not only applicable to athletes but to everyone. We live in a world where you connect with somebody. What's the first thing you probably do is Google their name, and so your digital footprint, what the perception of you is online matters a lot, and it's going to continue to matter and matter even more in the future. And so I really want to impact beyond the game to kind of be a blueprint to show athletes like, hey, you have a finite opportunity in front of you as an athlete. You have attention while you're on campus. People want to be in the same room as you. People want to know you. People want to connect with you. How are you utilizing this attention to create something bigger than yourself, to create opportunities that you're going to be able to leverage in life after sports? And so that's really what the book is about. Is really just a step-by-step process showing athletes like, hey, what is a personal brand? What is it? From one-on-one perspective, what exactly is a personal brand? How do you utilize it? What are some of the opportunities out there? What should you be doing on social media? What shouldn't you be doing on social media? How to speak out responsibly and appropriately about social justice issues? How to incorporate philanthropic causes into your brand? Just taking a lot of these different elements of brand building and giving it to athletes, and hoping that when NIL is enacted and student athletes are able to monetize, they're well prepared and empowered to really capitalize off of this opportunity they have.
That's major, man. Yeah. Hence the name Impact Beyond the Game. I think that's I have two cousins who are freshmen this year and just starting out in college. So I sent them copies of the book too, man, so they could
I
check it out.
appreciate that, man.
Absolutely, man. Because I feel like it's one thing to educate and be like, these are the laws, right? These are the upcoming changes that you can expect. But for you to go in depth in the book about how to actually capitalize on them, integrate it into everything you're doing, be smart, make good decisions, but also like, this is the way that you can get some bread, and help after you're done playing. That was one of the most important things that stood out to me. So that's why I feel like it's a good read for anybody. Not only, the student athletes themselves, but parents, staff, just you want to spread that message around. When I think about like people who are educated on NIL, on the laws, obviously you and Crystal Beecham come to mind immediately. as like the two people who like, you need some info on that, go check them out, you know?
That's my
So
homie right there. I love Crystal.
she's a real one, man. She's definitely made some good connections for me over the years. But yeah, man, so definitely go check out Malcolm. We're going to talk about social media and all that stuff at the end, but make sure you reach out to Malcolm, check out his content, follow him, learn all the stuff you can about NIL laws and everything else he's talking about. Definitely get a copy of both books, specifically Impact Beyond the Game, if you're really looking to get your knowledge up. And I know that, I don't want to say shortly after, but around the same time that you published the book, following up that, you announced that you were starting a new organization called Athletes Unheard, man. And it's been dope to see that really start to take off and all the stuff you're putting out around that. Can you just talk about what Athletes Unheard is and why you decided to start it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you know, even going back to my youth, mental health was something that wasn't talked about, especially within the Black community. Like, we don't talk about mental health. It's always like, you know, go pray about it, or tough it out, you know what I'm saying, one or the other. And so growing up in the inner city of DC, being a, you know, single parent, child of a single parent household, me, my mother, and my brother having to move around, having to you know, just experience my mom go through a lot of struggles. Looking back, it traumatized me in some ways. And so as I got older, that trauma, those experiences manifested itself in negative ways. And I had never talked about my feelings or my emotions or some of the things that I went through. And so here I am as an adult with all of this baggage, and I'm lashing out. I'm, you know, in periods where I'm just angry, and I don't know why I'm so angry. And so that was the first thing. And then next, you know, going through COVID, I had experienced anxiety attacks in the past, but COVID, just everything that's been happening the past year or so, like my anxiety level has increased like tenfold. And so last September, I experienced like 3 massive panic attacks, and like to the point where like I had to go to the hospital. It was so bad. And after that, man, I was like, I sat back and I thought to myself, you know, I had never paid attention to my mental health and my mental well-being in the past, and this was something I needed to change. And I also noticed how there was heightened levels of depression and anxiety with other athletes based off of everything that we've been going through. Here, I'm reading all these articles, hearing all these stories, and I'm like, mental health is something that obviously these conversations need to change, and this narrative needs to be, you know, revamped. What can I do to make a difference? How can I help amplify these conversations and hopefully create something that's going to really changed the way we look at mental health in the athletic community? And so all of that is really what led me to start building Athletes Unheard. And you know, what we really are right now is a media platform that's focused on, you know, amplifying conversations around mental health. And so using storytelling, using athletes, their experiences and their struggles to really you know, show athletes that it's okay to be vulnerable and to talk about your emotions, and to you know, be transparent with your feelings, and as all as a means to hopefully change the way all athletes think about and talk about mental health. And so that's really the impetus, man, and really you know, focused on making an impact in this vertical. And I think it's a void that needs to be filled, and I'm just trying to do my part to be a catalyst for that movement as well.
I love that, man. I think it's what is the future of that? Because I know right now there's a, like you said, it's a media platform. There's some stories being shared. But knowing you, man, I know you got a long-term vision for it that you're looking to build upon. So where do you see Athletes Unheard and really just everything you're doing? Where do you see where do you see yourself in like 10 years or with everything you got cooking right now?
It's a good question, man. I get that question a lot, bro. And to be honest, I have no idea, because you know, you can't even predict what's going to happen 2 months from now. Like, nobody thought we'd be going through COVID, and so
Right.
it's like you can only prepare for the day that you're here and maybe the next day in front of you, but you just got to live life in the present moment and just, you know what I'm saying, do what you can each and every day to live it out the fullest, and whatever you're trying to build or whatever difference you're trying to make in the world, just ensuring that you're putting it work on a daily towards that. And so, you know, if I had to give you a better answer than that, I would say still, you know, in the storytelling space, that's always really been my number one passion, or the thing that inspires me the most is the stories behind, you know, the athletes that we love to watch, and really, you know, getting to the root of how they got here, what they've been through, and helping to tell their stories in the most compelling way possible. So I know I'll be in the storytelling, athlete storytelling space in some capacity. And I see, Athletes Unheard really being, playing a huge part in that. We've had opportunities to collab with, Uninterrupted, and it's a couple other brands we're in talks with. So I mean, I see a lot of opportunity for this company to branch out and do some big things, whether that's mini docuseries or other methods of storytelling with podcast and written content. So we're looking at a lot of different things, but it's it's trying to keep the focus on the day to day, but also exploring what that long term vision will look like and what opportunities make the most sense. So that's where we're at, man, and I'm super driven to make this something huge in the future.
Right, sky's the limit, man. That's what I'm hearing. Sky's the limit with this thing.
Yes, sir.
Can never impact too many lives, man. That's awesome. I wanted to ask you too, man, for all the athletes out there who are struggling right now, maybe their season was canceled or cut short due to the C virus. What advice would you give, man, to those athletes? Maybe even some advice you would give to your former self, or just general advice to an athlete who's just completely lost right now, has no idea how to move forward, doesn't even know where to begin.
So I mean, I guess it would depend at what point in their career they're at, but I would say to all athletes, right now more than ever before, it's really important for you to find a way to talk to somebody about what you're going through, whether that's a friend or a family member or a coach, someone you can lean on, somebody you trust. Submit yourself to being vulnerable and open, because that goes a long way. And I think that in a time where we're dealing with a pandemic, where we're dealing with social unrest, where it's all this stuff going on, you got to deal with your athletic career, social media. Athletes are juggling so much, and I couldn't even imagine what it's like to be an athlete right now. But find somebody to talk to, and really try your best to be vulnerable and open about what you're experiencing in life, and know that regardless of what you are going through, if you think you might be experiencing depression, or you're overly anxious, chances are someone else is going through it too. And your ability to be open and to talk about it is going to open the door for other people to do the same. So that would probably be the best advice I can give anybody, is just try your best to be vulnerable and talk about what you're going through, because we're all humans at the end of the day, and we all struggle. And that's what life is, a series of ups and downs. So you can't make it through this life alone. So
mm-hmm. That's a great point you bring up about willing to be vulnerable and talking to people, or just talking to someone, because I know that, like, as you mentioned, while you were going through the transition, that's when you were writing, and that almost like became your outlet. But as far as like talking to other people directly or getting help, even if it's like therapy or something like that, is that something that you were actively doing as you were transitioning, or is that something you learned later in life?
Something that was definitely something I learned later in life. I would say, my mom has always been like my sounding board, or someone, if I was going through something, I would go and talk to her before anybody else. But I think therapy is crucial. And that's actually one of my goals for this year, is to find a therapist. I think, being trained mental professionals are trained for a reason. They have an expertise and a skill set in listening to people and dealing with some of the trauma or adversity they might be experiencing. So I'm a huge advocate for therapy, and it's something that I've been doing a lot of research on. And I've obviously been in touch with a lot of mental health professionals as I'm building out Athletes Unheard. And so I think that, if you are able to get a therapist, I know one of the problems is that therapy is expensive for people. And that's something that I think needs to be, revisited and rectified within the healthcare system. But I think if you're able to get a therapist, I would highly suggest that as well, because I think everybody should have one at some point in their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I think like you mentioned your mom being a sounding board for you. And when I moved back home, when I was done playing ball, and people have heard me share about this on the podcast before, but I'm just sharing with you, man. Like I come from a great family, man, very supportive. But because I wasn't able to really understand what I was going through, I wasn't able to share that with them. And then part of it was being prideful as well.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, once I got to a point where I could just open up about it. Like, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I feel upset. Like, I feel like a failure. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Just being able to say those words was a huge weight off my shoulders. So when I hear you talk about just talk to someone, even if it's not like a therapist, like you said, if you can't afford it, talk to someone. There's got to be someone in your life or someone you can reach out to. You can reach out to Malcolm. You can reach out to me. Someone is willing to hear what you have to say. And if you could just go forward with that, you'll be in a much better place than trying to deal with everything on your own. So I appreciate you sharing that, man. I think that's a good way for us to wrap up. You definitely came on here and dropped some gems, shared the message, man. And I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your time with us. Can you please tell people how they can get in touch, how they can support, how they can get in contact with you, all that kind of stuff?
Definitely, man. Well, I appreciate you having me on the show. I'm pretty accessible online. You can find me on every social media platform at Malcolm Lemmons. You can check out Athletes Unheard on every social media platform as well. We'll also be launching our own platform and sometime in February. So please be on the lookout for that as well. And Impact Beyond the Game is available on Amazon, and Lessons from the Game, I think it's out of stock on Amazon, but you can check that out on Amazon as well. I know I just threw a lot out there, but yeah, man, I appreciate the opportunity, bro.
Absolutely, man. It's been a pleasure. And then Athletes Unheard, the podcast, is available on all platforms as well, too, right?
Yep, and it's available on YouTube as well.
Awesome. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Malcolm, thank you for spending some time with us. This has been another great episode of Author Spotlight and Thrive After Sports with the man himself, Malcolm Lemmons. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace.